So what do I think about this change? Well, I mean, there's lots of commentators that are trying to describe what's going on at the moment. Are we in a kind of information war? Is it essentially the super rich trying to kind of hold power? What's going on? Nobody really knows. It's very complex. Certainly very, very powerful forces at play. Is Brexit about sovereignty for Britain, or is Brexit about selling Britain to America? Who knows? It's very difficult to say. I think whichever way, regardless of Trump and Brexit, one of the things that's clear is that people are better informed than ever. And the old idea of really nation states being the only thing that's in charge, which has never been true, that's changing. And I think the result of Brexit, the result of Trump, is that people are organising like never before. And actually, it feels like that's a good thing, that we need to organise, that we need to go to a kind of multinodal form of governance. So people think about government, but there's also governance. Government is controlled by people that are elected into Parliament or the President or whoever it might be. But governance is something that can happen at many different scales and in many different places and in many different organisations and networks. And I would say that the historical moment that we're in is probably as significant as the pre-parliamentary democracy moment. So there was a time when everybody was ruled by a king or a queen. Not everybody, but most people. It was kind of kingdoms was the power relationships were defined by kingdoms. That's shifted now from kingdoms to nation states, and those nation states are, broadly speaking, the paradigm there is a sort of democratic process, which I'm in favour of. I'm absolutely in favour of a democratic process. And I think we also need to recognise that governance is something that can't just be done by the government. So, especially when we're moving into a time of unprecedented change, climate change, biodiversity, soil, water, social unrest, a billion people unemployed, etc. It's not possible for government to cope with and manage all of that complexity. Actually, the only way we can manage all this complexity is by having a much more distributed form of leadership, in my opinion. And I would like to see it, I think it's along the lines of kind of healthcare and complementary healthcare. There's a really fantastic role for state-led health, or healthcare. So if you break your leg, of course you want to go to hospital and have your leg set. If you're feeling a bit down, you probably want to go to someone to talk to. It doesn't need the NHS as such. Or in a sense, what we've got is you've got healthcare and you've got complementary healthcare. And I think we need to move towards where we've got government and we've got complementary governance, if you like. This may sound a bit complicated, but it's not intended to be. I guess what I'm saying is I think that to respond to the challenges that we've got, we need a more distributed form of governance. And that means there's a much bigger role for civil society. There's no doubt in my mind that Western democracies have been, to some extent, and greater and lesser extent in different places, hijacked by corporations. That's not to say that people who work for corporations are bad people, but there is an incredible concentration of power into the hands of a very small number of people. And that does corrupt. So government is not always looking out for the people, it's often looking out for the corporate interest. And so it's incredibly important that civil society steps up to hold not just corporations to account, but also governments to account. and helps to set the direction that we need to go in, which, back to permaculture, earth care, people care, fair shares, anything less isn't good enough. So, for me, the opportunity of Brexit, the opportunity of Trump, the opportunity of the internet, the opportunity of millions of young people saying, this isn't good enough, is to say, right, well, what are we going to do about it? Don't think that every 5 years putting an X next to one sentence or one name is adequate. It is no longer adequate to think that putting an X in a box once every 5 years is a sufficient response to the complexity of the challenge we face. We have to organise together. And that means recognising that governance is a distributed, multinodal, multi-level, local to global activity. So we all need to get really good at governance. And that, for me, is the opportunity of Brexit. In this country, nobody knows what's going to happen. Right, well, let's set the agenda. Let's frame it. Let's not be reactive to, oh, what would happen if Theresa May does this? Oh, what's going to happen if Liam Fox sells us chlorinated chickens? No, why don't we set the narrative ourselves? We want earth care, people care, fair shares future for this country. So many people in this country want that. So there's a massive opportunity at the moment to actually mobilise around not an issue, but actually a vision for the future. And that's what we need to do. And the Permaculture Association is working with other organisations to start that kind of debate. Not even a debate, a discussion, a dialogue, a co-design for the kind of future we want.